In this video, I'm going to pull apart 3 famous YouTubers' thumbnails and remake them step by step to show you some of the secrets behind amazing thumbnail design. And you probably won't believe some of the tricks these guys have up their sleeve. Starting with Jackmate, always known as Jackmate. He has podcasts, videos, he's very entertaining, but most importantly, his thumbnails look like this. So let's remake this thumbnail from scratch, shall we? But first, why does this thumbnail work? Well, first off, you have the expression he's making right in the middle of the thumbnail, which pulls you into the image. The bright colors he's using too also make sure that the image stands out a lot. And then it's all topped off with these question boxes. And they're just small enough so you can't quite read them. Because of the expression and the way the title's written, you want to, and it just sucks you right in. And the thing I really want you to focus on here is the use of light. There's this explosion behind him. When something explodes behind you, it throws light onto the back of you, right? So that's what they've done. Without this, it would just look a little bit more fake and a little less polished. So let's go and make it, shall we? The first thing you need to do for a thumbnail like this is to get a light, ideally 2. So I grabbed 2 lights and shot my blind a bit. To make your life easier, shoot your thumbnail photos up against a plain background. You'll find out why this is so important in a second. So the first thing I did was to move the light around to try and match the same lighting Jack had. I wanted one behind me as this would help with the explosion effect after. I decided to point it at the wall and let the light bounce off the wall on the back of my head rather than just point the light directly at me, because this light was a lot softer and it actually spread around more of my head. Pop it there. So remember that, bounce a light for a softer look. That's kind of working. And then it was a game of just fiddling with different light placements. And we're looking good. So now I'm just going to take a photo and I sit on interval and the camera's going to go and take photos. Next stop, editing the image. First up, I cut out my face, which because I took my pictures on a plain background was really easy to do. Then I found a background that looked similar to Jack's using Shutterstock and dropped it in behind me. I then had to find some flames and add them to the image. This next part was really important. It's called light spill. So when I took my photo, I lit the back of my head to help my photo fit in with the fire that would be behind me. Now I need to spill the light of the flames onto my image. You see the difference, right? No spill, spill, no spill, spill. It just adds a touch which takes this image up a level. I played about with this for a while until it looked good and then cut out the Instagram question boxes from his image, but it still wasn't right. And I've realised what it is. The t-shirt I'm wearing is black and his green t-shirt just makes the image stand out so much more. In fact, look, the difference between making mine a bit greener is massive. And I always wear black t-shirts, so it's time to think again on that one. But it still didn't look right though. So I tried adding more of a bright patch behind my head to try and separate myself from the background, and that worked. The issue with cutting yourself out of a photo is you get these hard edges. If you can soften them a little, it just looks a little bit more natural. So that's exactly what I did to finish off the image, and hey presto. So next up we have Sam Woodall and this thumbnail. What a beaut, what a beaut. Now Sam's thumbnails are always top notch, probably because he's a graphic designer and an editor, and he works on the Alpha Gaming channel. But the reason I chose this thumbnail is because here Sam has left the traditional model of having this over-the-top expression and eye contact, and actually what matters here is the position of his camera. So you're going to notice this in films. But when in a film they want to give a character authority, they put the camera below them, pointing up. If you put the camera above you looking down, you end up looking like a hobbit. Now the video is about pro editing tips, so the low camera angle gives him the authority to make him look like a pro from the image. The second reason this works so well is because of the way he uses, like Jackmate, light. And the light spills from the background onto his person. And then behind him there are images which will stick out to editors, an editing timeline on a computer. So let's go and make this bad boy, shall we? I started by taking my camera off a tripod and putting it on the table. Now this didn't really work, so I had to find something to balance it on to try and make it point up enough so you could see my face. Luckily a TV remote slid under the lens made do. Sam's lighting here is really hard to emulate. He's got it so bright on 2 sides of him, and then there's this shadow which is kind of just off center in his face, and it's dark. And you need that darkness to create some mood and some drama. This took me a while to figure out how to do, but Sam's got a lot of light on his hair too, and that helped separate him from the background, which meant I had to get the light up really high pointing down, and then the opposite side of me get the light to brighten a slither of my face while leaving some moody shadow in the middle. Then I needed a mouse to hold. Being super lazy, I just grabbed a camera lens and held that, thinking no one would probably ever notice. So this thumbnail is moody, and that's why I love it. It's serious, it means business, and my face is usually none of those things. So it took me quite a few attempts to take a picture that didn't look completely ridiculous. The edit was next. I loaded the pictures in and I started to cut myself out, which was a nightmare because I didn't shoot myself on a plain background, which I told you specifically to do earlier on. So this image took 10 times longer to cut out. So the background is split into two different halves. There's a computer and an editing timeline. Now I don't have that exact computer, and I didn't want to just steal his image, so I found a computer which looked kind of similar, but it had tons of crazy colours on it. So I had to make it black and white and then add a blue gradient over the top of it to make it suit his look, and then add the light ray, which really does help to bring your eye into the image. Played around with that for a while and then went on to the other half of the background, which is from Premiere Pro. Now I don't edit on Premiere Pro, so I took some of my Final Cut timeline, put it in, and it just looked drab and boring. And this is because of the colours that were used. See how boring my image looks? Sam had blue and purple and red in his background that helped the image stick out. So I stole Sam's background and used that, but the image still looked a long way off. It just looked so busy. Once again, I've put the wrong t-shirt on. Mine is dark, his is light, and my dark t-shirt just won't let me stick out. In the words of Homer Simpson, dough. So unfortunately I had to go and take another photo and then cut it out again. But what a massive difference. The image still didn't look right, so I added a shadow to separate myself from the background, and then added some more light rays and blue light, which would then overlap and spill onto my skin. Sam had done something I'd not seen anyone do before. He darkened the bottom of his image, so there was this dark gradient fading up just a little bit. I then added that to my own thumbnail, and it just helped make it stick out that little bit more. Now that was a heck of a lot of work. Well played, Sam, well played. Now you've probably met iJustine before, and she's been on the platform for 14 years, and this is the thumbnail we're gonna remake today. What a cracker. This is a great example of how to make a review thumbnail for a product, or just how to make a product the star of an image. So what makes it so great? Well, you've guessed it, light again. You're starting to see a pattern here, right? So you've got this mystery light in the background, which then helps to sort of draw your attention towards the image she's holding, and then you've kind of got her recognizable face blurred out. But the way it's framed and made, the real star of the show is the camera she's showing off. So let's go and make this, but this time I'm gonna try something different. So in order to make this thumbnail, I had to start off by taking two photos. So the first was the hand holding the item. Light, once again, was the crucial thing to get right. I need to get my hand lit up really bright from the front, but also the back, because in the thumbnail, Justine has used a shining light that would be behind her hand. So to make everything look less fake, I used a real light blasted behind my hand to help achieve this. That's too much light. Once the lighting was as close to hers as possible, I clicked the buttons to take the photos and took about 15 to pick from. And then I took the second photo, which was going to be just my face. So, no, that was the other side. This time, the lighting was way less bright on Justine's face. She had shadows on the far side, which meant I only needed to use one light on the front of me to get the same look. I took multiple photos because, as you can see, posing is not my strong point, and then I moved on to the edit. Now the first task in the edit is to cut out the two images and then put them together, positioning them so the hand didn't look freakishly big or my head didn't look weirdly small. I then blurred my face to make it look like it was in the background more. The next step was to simply put an almost black background behind me and then find a light ray to mimic Justine's. So now all I had to do was position it and the image was starting to get there. The image has layers and the shining light plays a big part in that. So it's behind her hand but in front of her face, so it sort of passes into the middle and streams over her face but also spills a bit onto her fingers. And it's these streams of light and the way that they bounce off the body is what levels this up a notch and are worth the time and effort. Like the other images, the edges just looked a bit too hard, so I softened them up a bit and then I added a little bit more light spill onto my hand and played with the colours, and there we go. It's so easy to think that we're doing a great job on our thumbnails, me included, but looking at these three and seeing the effort that went into them to make them go to that next level really makes you realise how much there is to this. This playlist here is the next thing you should click on if you want to learn more about making thumbnails. A lot more.